Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back into the Bears Den, an NFL podcast with the Chicago Bears First Focus. I'm your host, Alex. Here today, I wanted to jump on for a few minutes, discuss the Sam Darnold situation in Minnesota, as it, obviously is in the NFC North. And I think it's one of the more interesting offseason kind of situations that we're going to be seeing because we haven't seen this before, right? We haven't seen a 14-win team be the fifth seed and then lose in the wild card, right? Usually 14-win teams, they were, getting the bye, or maybe they were the third seed back then when it used to be two byes or something like that, and they would usually win, right? And I think the Sam Darnold situation is so unique, not only just because of the record and what he did for the majority of the season this year with the Vikings, but also kind of how he has this past that plays a big part in how he is perceived by owners, GMs in the league, other players, and national media as well, right? Because as we know, Sam Darnold, he has had an interesting career, and me personally, I don't hold it too much against him for struggling with the New York Jets. I mean, the New York Jets, for practically my entire life, have been a bottom tier run franchise in the league. And if you're a Jets fan listening, I apologize. I'm, nothing personal, but it's just the way it's been. And even when they are able to bring in, you know, a first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback, they still can't do anything right. And, so I won't hold that against Sam. Obviously, went to Carolina, didn't work out there. I thought he played okay in Carolina, right? But they moved off him, went to San Francisco, was just kind of there, and then comes to Minnesota, wins 14 games. And so the first question is, how much of it was Sam Darnold versus how much of it was Kevin O'Connell, right? I think that's important. I think that with Kevin O'Connell, he's obviously one of the better offensive coaches in the league. And I think that we've seen this now with Kirk Cousins and Darnold. I've always thought that Kirk Cousins was kind of just an average quarterback, right? Like I don't think he's good enough to win the Super Bowl. He can't take you to the top, but he can definitely get you to the playoffs, and then that's about it, right? But when the games are big, when the lights are bright, when the stage is set, he can't really get it done. Kind of the same with Darnold we saw this year, but when you have a good coach like Kevin O'Connell, he can raise the floor. And then the quarterback can only take you as far as the quarterback can take you, right? So the situation is, what do we do if we're the Minnesota Vikings? What do the Vikings do? Because he's going to be a free agent in March. They have J.J. McCarthy, first round pick last year, who will be in his second year, which will really be his rookie year because he was out this year with injury. What do you do? And it's a difficult decision, right? I know that people think that, oh, it's an easy decision now because we just saw how he played in the last two games of the year and the biggest games of the year. It's easy to go with JJ McCarthy. But JJ McCarthy is an unknown right now, right? He will be essentially a rookie. We haven't seen him play a regular season snap yet. And as good as the scouting report was, as good as he may have looked in the preseason this year, he's still an unknown. And things change. The game is different. It's played at a different speed in the regular season. We don't know. And we've seen this countless times before where teams think that the grass is greener. The grass is greener. We saw it with Pittsburgh, right? They had Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph in 2023. They went 10-7. Hey, the grass is greener. We're going to move off these guys. Quarterback play hasn't been good enough. And it wasn't. The grass is always greener, right? Let's go get Russell Wilson, who's probably a Hall of Famer. Let's go get Justin Fields. We're going to be better. And then they went 10-7. Right? And that's a unique scenario where the record actually stayed the same. There's been scenarios where it's gotten worse. Take the Bears situation, for example. And long-term projection, I think Caleb is going to be a much better player than Justin Fields. But 2023, the Bears won 7 games. With better quarterback play this year, the Bears won 5 games. Now, I'm not blaming Caleb for that, but I'm just saying, right? Grass isn't always greener right away, right? So let's look at the scenario of, let's say Minnesota lets Darnold walk. then there's two realities that can happen. JJ McCarthy can be a hit, and they made the right choice, and he's their star quarterback. He's their franchise quarterback for years to come. But there's just as much of a chance that we find out JJ McCarthy can't actually play in the NFL. And now all of a sudden, the quarterback that just led our team to 14 wins is out the door, and he's playing for someone else. And obviously, the financial situation is part of the decision. The franchise tag is an option for the Vikings. They would be giving him about $40 million if they were to franchise tag him for one season, which is definitely a lot of money. And it's a lot of money if it's kind of an experiment year, right? So if I was the GM of Minnesota, what would I do? I think where I sit right now in the situation is you have to bring him back. You can let him explore options. You can see if there's teams that are going to give him a contract. Maybe there's a team out there that will give him a deal. Maybe the Raiders, if they can't, trade up and get who they want. Maybe the Giants, maybe the Jets would want to bring him back. And, if Aaron Rodgers retires and he can kind of be like a bridge quarterback for them. There is, a potential that there's teams out there that will give him money, a couple year contract to come play for them, right? But there's also a chance that he doesn't get offers out there. There's a chance that these teams saw, how he performed in the biggest games, how he performed these last two games, and maybe that scares them, off of him. And then if I'm Minnesota, I think you bring him back because I think he's valuable on the team regardless of whether or not he's playing. I think that, you can have them battle it out. I think there's a world where JJ will have to start anyways. You're going to have to evaluate JJ McCarthy. And so having Sam Darnold on the bench, having Sam Darnold being able to explain things and, help coach him up and help him see things that maybe he wouldn't have seen himself. I mean, this is a guy that has had a lot of years of experience in the league, right? Whether it's been good or bad, that's still experience. That's still valuable things that he's learned that he can pass on to this young quarterback. So I do think having him in the room is valuable. And, if I'm a Minnesota fan, I get it. I'm pissed about the way the season ended, lost, but this kid won 14 games. He's young. And there's not many quarterbacks that can go out there and say, hey, I won 14 games in a season, right? So I think that he brings value. I think that, in 2025, it's going to have to be JJ McCarthy's year. You got to find out. But if it's, week 10, 11, 12, and JJ McCarthy is not showing any signs that he can play, well, then you have the quarterback that got you to the playoffs this year. And with years of coaching and staying in the system, maybe he can develop and the ceiling can raise, right? So I think if I'm Minnesota, I let him shop some deals, see if anyone's going to give him a contract, and then I'm offering maybe a 2-year, 3-year deal, right? Maybe 2 years, 75 million. Maybe the Baker Mayfield deal, 3 years, 100 million. I think that's fair. I think he's earned that type of contract with what he did, but I don't think, he can't get top of the year money, top of the line money. He can't get a Daniel Jones type contract. I think that if I'm Minnesota, it's a mistake letting him walk out the door unless he gets a big contract. Just because we don't know with JJ McCarthy, right? It's unknown. So I think they're in a tough spot. I see some national media people talking about, hey, you could give Sam a real deal, 250 mil, whatever, 5 years, and you can trade JJ McCarthy. Nah, you can't do that. You got to evaluate this kid first. You have to evaluate. And you have to evaluate Sam too, because maybe this was just a one-off. Maybe this year was the outlier. You don't know, right? So I just think that you have to. The best case scenario for Minnesota would be to keep him in the quarterback room, let him help coach, develop, maybe even battle. And if something were to happen with JJ McCarthy, we don't know the injury. The injury history. Like, is he going to have an injury problem? We don't know. If JJ were to go down, which I hope he doesn't, you have Sam there that can plug in, and that your season's not toast if you lose your starting quarterback, right? So that's where I stand, and this isn't me saying, is like a malicious video, like, oh, I'm a Bears fan, I hope they do this. No, this is unbiased. This is what I think they should do. This is what I would do if I was in the situation. And it's what I want the Bears to do, to be honest, because as much as I love Tyson Bagent, I think he has a ton of potential. I want to see him get an opportunity to start somewhere else. And I want the Bears to bring in a veteran quarterback to sit behind Caleb to help teach him things. To be like, hey, in this scenario, this is how I would have handled it. And maybe Caleb isn't thinking of that or whatever, and that helps elevate his game, So I think having a veteran in the quarterback room is very beneficial. It would be very beneficial regardless for JJ McCarthy. And I think Minnesota would be silly to let Sam Darnold walk out the door. So let me know what you guys think down below. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? If you're new here, please hit the subscribe button. I appreciate you guys listening. As always, I will see you in the next video. Bear down. Have a good one. Peace.